During the Second World War, espionage and spying was a key tool for every country in order to plot the next moves in the conflict or to uncover secrets to get the upper hand on the enemy. We all know stories surrounding spies during World War II. However, what isn't as well known is the story of the chief of the Abwehr, the German military intelligence service. Today we look at the incredible story of the man in charge of the German Abwehr, and the man who would actually cause more damage to Hitler than good, and would even plot against his Nazi leadership. Today we look at the brutal execution of Wilhelm Canaris, the Abwehr chief who plotted Hitler's downfall and ultimately paid the biggest price. Remember to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Wilhelm Franz Canaris was born on the 1st of January 1887 in Abwehr into a wealthy industrial family. His father was a wealthy man, and he believed he was related to the 19th century Greek admiral Constantine Canaris. It would be this that influenced Wilhelm's later decision to join the Imperial German Navy. He would idolise the Greek admiral, and he joined the Imperial Navy at the age of 18 to follow in the footsteps of the man he believed he was related to. When the First World War broke out, Canaris would be serving as an intelligence officer on board the light cruiser SMS Dresden, and this would be the only warship that managed to evade the British Royal Navy for a while during the Battle of Falkland Islands in December 1914. The evasion was mainly due to Canaris' skill at directing the ship and his tactics in remaining undetected. The ship would later get shelled and scuttled, however Canaris managed to escape capture by using his fluency in Spanish whilst being imprisoned in Chile. He was adept at working in intelligence and then was given different tasks to carry out revolving around this line of work. He carried out reconnaissance over enemy shipping movements and would end the war as a U-boat commander with a number of sinkings on his record, with his reputation even reaching the Kaiser. Following the First World War and during the German Revolution of 1918-19, Canaris helped to organise the formation of the Freikorps paramilitary groups to suppress communists in Germany. He was also involved in a military court that tried those involved in high-profile assassinations and was carving a career in high-profile places. By 1924, he was sent to Osaka to supervise the building of secret U-boats which directly violated the Treaty of Versailles. The treaty that set out punishments for the First World War banned the creation of German ships, however Canaris would secretly be overseeing the work. This work would be cut short with the German government thinking twice about annoying the British, but Canaris would make deals. He made deals with other international shipping companies and industrialists, and even the Spanish Navy, that allowed the construction of U-boats to continue. Because of this he made some enemies in Germany, and by 1928 had been removed from his position in Spain, overseeing the creation of the vessels. When Adolf Hitler rose to the position as Chancellor of Germany, Wilhelm Canaris was enthused about the change in politics and gave lectures about Nazism to the crews on board the vessels he was now captain of. He believed the Nazis would shape the future of Germany for the better, with a charismatic leader at the helm that would release Germany from the shackles of the Treaty of Versailles and return the country to being a world power. Before this time, Canaris, as mentioned, sympathised with the Freikorps movement and rebelled against the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. In late September 1934, Canaris settled into a role as a fortress commander and must at this point have considered his retirement, settling down with his family for a relaxing life. However, he caught wind of issues within the Reichswehr ministry over who was going to be the successor to the Abwehr chief captain, Konrad Patzig. The Abwehr was a German intelligence service which dealt exclusively with human intelligence and gathered raw information and reports from a number of field agents, sources and other spies. Patzig, who was on his way out, recommended Canaris for the new job due to his past experience, and he accepted the role despite being warned about the Nazi Party's inner workings. On the 1st of January 1935, Canaris was made the head of the Abwehr, and it was believed that Reinhard Heydrich supported this decision, despite German Navy Admiral Erich Raeder being opposed to the appointment. Heydrich and Canaris would remain acquaintances but rivals, but Canaris considered Heydrich a brutal fanatic, and Heydrich would constantly monitor the calls of the Abwehr, being suspicious of the new chief. The two later met with other officials a few weeks into the role to discuss dividing intelligence operations between the Abwehr, Gestapo and the SS. During 1935 to 1939, Canaris expanded the Abwehr from 150 people to almost 1,000. He signed agreements with Heydrich, clarifying the roles of the intelligence organisation and the Gestapo, and initially it was clear he was a strong supporter of Hitler. It would be Canaris who would suggest using the Star of David to identify Jews within the German population, promoting their isolation, which eventually led to the annihilation and extermination. A month before Hitler annexed Austria with the Anschluss, Canaris would order the Abwehr to oversee deception operations to give the Austrians an impression of what appeared to be a substantial German military preparation for the impending act of aggression. The sham didn't work, but the Austrian Chancellor Kurt Schuschnigg was later forced to resign, which caused the impending annexation. At this time, Canaris would begin to spend more time with Hans Oster, a general who would later organise anti-Nazi activities and serve as a deputy chief of the Abwehr under Canaris. They would work together on ways to prevent a European war or help stall it. Following the Anschluss, he absorbed many Austrian intelligence agents, but avoided those who already converted to the Nazis. Canaris and his associates were not wholly committed to overthrowing Hitler, but were more focused on allying in secret with the anti-Nazis led by Hans Oster. Plans would be drawn up and debated by Canaris involving the capture and unseat of Hitler from his role as the head of the Nazi Party before the invasion of Czechoslovakia took place. Discussions with British MI6 would take place, and Canaris was at the centre of this anti-Nazi plot. The military leaders believed that Hitler's proposed invasion of Czechoslovakia would lead to Britain declaring war, and many of these carried anti-war sentiments, which was echoed by the German people. Following the signing of the Munich Agreement, granting Hitler the Sudetenland in exchange for no more German gains, Canaris was disappointed with the conference, and it ultimately gave Hitler's reputation a boost and a rise in his popularity. Canaris was relieved that war was averted, and appeared following this to become committed once again to Hitler, despite his wavering faith. In January 1939, Canaris, however, and the German Abwehr would fabricate the Dutch war scare that terrified the British government. They received information that Germany intended to invade the Netherlands, and that captured Dutch airfields would be used to launch a strategic bombing offensive against the British. Every piece of information conveyed by the Abwehr would be false, and it intended to change British foreign policy, and this actually happened. Before this, he set up a new Office of Intelligence, which operated in the United States, and relied on a number of American spies who would turn over information about different weapons technologies. Following the outbreak of the Second World War, Canaris visited the front and was greatly moved and upset by the scenes of devastation that the German military had caused. It's said that seeing Warsaw in flames brought him to tears, and he also witnessed war crimes committed by the Einsatzgruppen, including the burning of a synagogue with around 200 Polish Jews locked inside. He received more reports from the Abwehr about these massacres, and even registered his objections to the war crimes to Hitler's inner circle. He documented to Wilhelm Canaris, leader of the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, that he objected to the extensive shootings of innocent people, and Canaris even warned Canaris to keep his mouth shut about these protestations. Canaris from this point on then decided to work more actively with anti-Nazi ideas, and began to coordinate the Abwehr to actively try to overthrow Hitler's regime. He attempted to form a group of like-minded Wehrmacht officers, but at this time had very little success. His part nemesis Heydrich would note these issues at the time, and would outline Canaris' political unreliability. He also worked to sabotage the German plans to seize Gibraltar, and would publicly to senior officers state that the Abwehr has nothing to do with the persecution of the Jews, distancing the group from this. In June 1942, he sent 8 spies to the east coast of America to try to sabotage American economic targets and to help demoralise the population of the US. However, all of them were quickly arrested by the FBI, thanks to 2 Abwehr agents who betrayed the mission, and all of them were sentenced to death, except the 2 betrayers who were sentenced to life imprisonment. This operation was a big failure for Canaris, and no further sabotage attempts were made in the US. Canaris, after this time, frequently visited Spain and was in contact with the British from Gibraltar. He is said to have made regular contact with British agents and wanted to know the terms for peace if Germany got rid of Hitler. Churchill replied to him stating that the terms were simply unconditional German surrender. Canaris was also building contacts with other agents in MI6 in different areas at the time, and he even intervened to save a number of people from Nazi persecution. He would work to get a number of Jews out of harm's way, for example helping get 500 Dutch Jews to safety, and many were given training as Abwehr agents, and then were issued with false papers allowing them to leave Germany. Now Canaris' downfall was a rather brutal one. He was playing a risky game, acting as a double agent ferrying information to the enemy, and Heinrich Himmler grew suspicious and would insist that Hitler dismiss Canaris and abolish the Abwehr. The Abwehr was then taken over by the Ostland SD, part of the main Reich security office. His actions against the Nazis by communicating information to other secret services would catch up with him. He had been playing a very risky game for a few years, and his anti-Nazi reactions were beginning to come to fruition. He had been speaking for over a year to the US and British regarding Hitler's end and how it would lead to the end of the Second World War, and also debated the idea of surrender with them. These actions of course were treasonous. Canaris had also been involved in the foiling and releasing of documents and details about Hitler's alleged plot to kidnap or murder Pope Pius XII in 1943. Some weeks later Canaris was placed under house arrest and was released from this in June 1944 to take up another job as the head of the Special Staff for Mercantile Warfare and Economic Combat Measures. This group, known as the HWK, coordinated resistance to the Allied economic blockades of Germany. He was then arrested again, and he would convince his arresters of his loyalty to the Nazis. Links were drawn between him and the July 20th plot to kill Hitler, however little evidence was discovered linking Canaris specifically to this. Investigations against him would drag on until April 1945, and orders to dispose of the remaining prisoners of the July 20th plot were issued. Canaris' personal diary was found and was presented to Hitler in early 1945. This contained incriminating information about his involvement in the conspiracy. Placed on trial, he was charged and found guilty of treason and then sentenced to death. Canaris' fall from grace under the Nazi regime would be confirmed, as he was humiliated before his execution. Witnesses said that he was led to the gallows naked and executed on the 9th of April 1945 at Flossenburg concentration camp, weeks before the Second World War would come to an end. He was brutally strangled to death inside the camp. The whole point of Canaris' execution was to reinforce his humiliation and shame for the role he had in bringing disrepute to the Third Reich. A prisoner said that the night before his execution, he tapped out a coded message on the wall, indicating that he wasn't a traitor and that he actually acted in duty to Germany. The message allegedly said, "This is the end, badly mishandled, my nose broken. I've done nothing against Germany. If you survive, please tell my wife." Wilhelm Canaris was executed by hanging 2 weeks before the camp was liberated, and his body was left to rot as a dangerous signal about going against the Nazis. This was a clear sign to anyone about the power of Hitler, and that defiance against him would be met with brutal reprisals. So the life of Wilhelm Canaris was extremely interesting. However, he would constantly talk with other countries during the Second World War about life without Hitler, and would openly speak with Allied intelligence services about what it would take to bring around a surrender. He was a man who was rather keen on distancing himself from the anti-Semitic and horrific acts of genocide carried out by the Nazis, and he's certainly a confusing figure to look at. However, he's a man who ultimately met his end in brutal fashion at the hands of the SS, who would directly link him with the famous bombing of Hitler's Wolf's Lair, which aimed to claim the life of the Führer. Wilhelm Canaris certainly is an extremely divisive and intriguing figure. Once again, thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.